Now this is Hollywood Unlocked.
Yo, it's Hollywood Unlocked Uncensored. I'm Jason Lee.
Hey, it's DJ Damage.
Melissa's still not here, praying that she's making her way back soon. So, Damage, I'm in my kitchen.
I see.
Black brands matter. Thank you to everybody that supports this black brand. What does that say? Sleep is for billionaires?
Billionaires. We working. We hustling.
I'm still woke then, because I'm nowhere near that. But yeah, first of all, if you're listening to this on iTunes, please make sure you're also listening on Spotify, Google Play, iHeart, and you're watching on YouTube.
That's right.
Because that's where we are. So what's been going on with you, man? I know the protests seem to be dying down.
Well, are they really dying down? I know here a little bit, but I feel like
they're not burning shit up anymore.
The rioting has died down a little bit, but I think we're still looking for justice for Breonna Taylor. So until that happens, you know, we're still fighting. We're still making our voices be heard because we need justice for her.
My fear is always that when stuff like this happens, that people just kind of get up in the emotion of the moment and then it dies down and goes away. Like the protesting and the involvement in politics and everything should not die down as long as racism or, you know, bigotry still exists. So what do you think is going to take to keep people motivated, to keep on going?
To be honest, Jason, I feel like people are motivated. Like every platform I see that usually is full of whatever gossip or things that could be distracting. They're using their platform to keep people aware, people up to date, to keep the messaging going. So I just feel like I think we're all at a point where it's like, what is our plan? What are we doing next? And if you see what they're doing in the NBA, where a lot of players are like, I'm not ready to come back. I'm ready to take that sacrifice and keep this movement going. I feel like that's where it's going now. We're becoming more systematic and trying to have more of a plan. But I don't feel like it's necessarily dying down. Do you feel like it's dying down?
I don't think that it's dying down overall. I do think, though, like what I love is that right after it started, the temperature started to go down, like social media, we see the stats. So like the energy on social media has changed. It's still there, but not like right when, you know, George Floyd was murdered or whatever. Mm-hmm. My initial concern was like, okay, people are going to just go back to usual, you know what I mean? And then I started seeing people say, okay, wait, don't forget about Breonna Taylor. And then I started to see, you know, more stuff in the news with Rashad Brooks. And I love that people are still keeping the conversation going. It's also, to me, important to say that, remember, there have not been any convictions yet. Like arrests are not convictions. And so if in any way you decide to quit and to give up, advocating for justice, remember, justice is yet to be served. So the work is not done. And November is coming, and we have to change the course of this country come November.
We have to vote. And I feel like a lot of these businesses are somewhat lucky that everything's not really back to normal, because I feel like if it was, a lot of these things that we are now aware of and people are feeling more empowered to speak on, a lot of these companies would be quote unquote canceled. You know, I think people will be going back to work and seeing the systemic racism that they deal with in their everyday life. And I feel like because things are somewhat closed down, some of these companies are getting a pass as putting out these little remarks or pretending to be woke or with the movement. But I feel like a lot of the day-to-day stuff, I do feel like when we do get back to normal, there's going to be more things that's going to be coming out, more outrage. And like you said, there hasn't been any convictions yet. And if there won't be, I do feel like we're going to be back out on those streets hitting harder than before.
Yeah. And I just hope that people are listening and just, again, I know this show is usually full of ridiculousness.
I know, right?
And look, we're going to get there again. But I also had my own eruption of consciousness.
Come on.
No Amanda Seals. I've had my own eruption of consciousness where I've had this emotional journey of really, Al Sharpton's on the show, and he had said something at George Floyd's funeral in Houston where he said that, get your knees off our necks, that, the knee is still on our neck in education, in health services, and also in credit, just in things that should be available to everybody equally. For us, it hasn't been. And even though I think I've known it and, I've had my own experiences with racism, it hasn't impacted me the way this has, because I'll share with you, I was thinking about my journey of what I want to do and what I built and why I built what I built. And when I talk to people, and they say, oh man, I'm inspired by what you've done and I wish I could be as successful as you. And when I think about what does the end look like for me, I don't even know where the end is, because the finish line, as I've said, it keeps moving. And that just keeps bothering me, that nobody can give me a straight answer. And I've talked to everybody. I've had, just in television, had a really productive call with Terrence J. I've reached out to Nick Cannon. I've talked to Mona and other Black content creators. And I'm just like, okay, you can't just keep waving the one nigga you let in over our head as the ideal that you believe in providing opportunities equally to Black creators, you know? And so I know I've been having this whole evaluation of like, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And not with it on the basis of my restrictions or what the world says I can and cannot do, but like where I can't do it with them, go do it for myself, you know? So it's been one of those things where it's been an interesting journey for sure. And George Floyd's death, I know, has impacted me beyond just, you know, going to a protest. Like, it's getting active and spending my time literally trying to help.
No, absolutely. And like we said before, we need justice for Breonna Taylor. We can't let that go silent. We have to keep fighting. We need to keep making noise for that. And I feel sad because a lot of Black women out there saying, you know, it's not as much outcry for Breonna Taylor. So I want to make sure we use our platform here and keep pushing that and let them know that we got their back. And
shout out to different celebrities. I saw Queen Latifah and different people post a video reminding people that Breonna Taylor's the officers that killed her, has still not been arrested. Shout out to Angie Martinez and Angelique Yee, who interviewed her mother and shared the story about how she found out that she died. And it was really emotional that, you know, all the time they were giving a runaround, all those hours, her daughter's dead body was still in the apartment. And I think that if people can just connect to it being their child, you know, connect to it being somebody that you love, and how would you feel and how would you want other people to feel? And so I'm just really glad that, you know, people are still keeping it alive. But again, there's not been any convictions. There hasn't been any elections in those communities of people to help change the discourse of their communities. And again, November is coming up. And I would just say, regardless of what you think about voting, just do it just because it may help. Just do it because it may help. If you don't believe in it, you don't believe your votes count, you don't believe in the electoral process, you believe it's all a sham, you believe it's a conspiracy, you believe they've already decided, whatever you believe, still go and vote anyway, because at least you tried, right?
Get out and vote. We got to make our voices be heard now more than ever.
So Reverend Al Sharpton is on the show. He's been somebody who I've seen since, I don't even know, since I was a kid, out here in the streets fighting for our Black lives. What do you think about Al Sharpton, and what have you followed his career?
Yeah, I mean, Al Sharpton is somebody that's been prevalent in the media, in the Black community, since I could even remember. Since I was probably 3-4 years old, looking at television, Al Sharpton was out there fighting for the things we're fighting for today. And I think it's good to have some of those people from the past generation still here present, because they've seen how far we've came. And I feel like to know where you're going, you got to know where you came from. And I think we are honored, however anybody feels about Al Sharpton, to have somebody around that has been pushing this agenda consistently throughout dedicated his whole life to it. And I'm really just, I'm excited that he's on the show today. And I'm happy that we still have him here more than ever, because now I feel like you said, the eruption of consciousness, a lot of people are waking up, and we need people that have been there and have been fighting that fight for a long time to help guide us, help guide that energy, so we're not just aimlessly doing things, you know?
Yeah. And I wonder what he thinks about what's happening today, especially with the boom of social media and being able to see, you know, so many people from different walks of life participate in this movement, in this civil war that's happening in our country and around the world. So it'd be good to have him here. And I might as well, let's just talk to him now.
Let's get to him.
Author, host, minister, and civil rights icon, Reverend Al Sharpton. Reverend Al, thank you for making time for us today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jason, and thank you, Damage, for inviting me.
I appreciate it.
Of course, and the invitation is open. So anytime you want to come back, we would love to have you, because just in preparing for today's interview, which I won't lie, we don't prepare for many interviews. We get on here, we have a lot of reckless fun. And, you know, we never know where the show's going to go. And so, But for you, because you've been such a
Well, people warn me about you, Jason. Say you do a lot of damage. Y'all do a lot of damage.
let me tell you something. I was doing my research today because I had to prepare. I said I got to get this one right. We had Senator Maxine Waters on recently. I said, Auntie Maxine, come on, Uncle Al, we gotta do it right.
The right way.
Because I feel like we're living in times right now where we love entertaining people, we love making people laugh, and at times we love being messy, but the world is in a weird place. And so, it took, we recently had Amanda Seals on where she talked about folks having this eruption of consciousness. And I had my own eruption of consciousness where I had built this massive platform and wasn't using it all the ways that I can. There's times to being responsible. And I think we live in a time right now where we have to be a little bit more responsible with what's happening, and sharing our platform to elevate those conversations.
Exactly. Well, and I think the reality is that you're in entertainment and you do what you do and have built a big platform. But the reality is that you and Damage don't know that Ahmaud Arbery might have been one that listened to your podcast, or George Floyd might have been one that watched y'all on video. So you're looking out for the people that make you you. And that's how real it is. So at some points we got to pause and say, wait a minute. The people that helped me build me into being what I am, I want to make sure that they're safe and protected. So that's all part of the journey.
And also paying respect to people like you who've dedicated their whole lives to making it an opportunity for us to even be here and have a broadcast and be in people's homes and cars and online. And so, we just appreciate everything that you've done. You've selfishly or unselfishly have dedicated your whole life to this movement. And so I wanted to ask, how did you decide did you know that this was your calling, or was this just, how did you decide that you were going to dedicate your whole life to this?
Well, I started in the Church of God in Christ as a kid. My parents brought me to the church, and when I was a junior usher, when I was 3 years old, and you hand out the programs and you help seat the people and you act like you know what you're doing, but you're 3 years old. And they had an anniversary for the junior ushers the next year when I was 4, and everybody was sitting around with the adult advisor, and they said, "What do you want to do on the anniversary?" My sister wanted to sing. Ronnie Dyson, who later became a big singer on Broadway, made the hit in the 70s. If you let me make love to you, why can't I touch you? That's way before y'all's time. But he was in the church with us, and he wanted to read a poem. I said I wanted to preach. They all laughed. She brought me to the bishop. He let me preach in front of 900 people. So by the time I was 7, I was doing Everybody's Youth Day, Mahalia Jackson, the gospel icon, heard about me, put me on a couple of programs. So I knew I wanted to be a minister. I felt that was my calling. I'm preaching before I could read and write. But for some reason, I didn't want to do it the way they were doing. I kept watching the news, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And I kept seeing Reverend Martin Luther King, Reverend Adam Clayton Powell. I said, I wanted to be like that. And my father left when I was 10. And my mother had to move into projects. We lost the house, lost the Cadillac. And she was afraid that I wanted to be in this movement stuff, that I would get with some, quote, militants and leave the church. So she brought me to a guy who was Dr. King's chapter leader in Brooklyn, named Reverend William Jones. And he and Reverend Jesse Jackson, both of them were older than me, said, no, we'll keep him in the church and in the movement. And it fit like a glove. And I've been in it ever since I was 12 years old, under Reverend Jones, who's passed now, and Reverend Jesse Jackson. So I grew up doing this. And, you don't know your call until you get there. And it's like punching in the password and your iPad lights up or your computer turns on. You know when you got it wrong because it don't turn on. But when you got it right, everything comes on. And I just knew it, and it's been on ever since.
See, I've recently watched you, and again, I've seen you for years. I've watched you for years consistently push the same message, consistently tap into the same vein I think that we all have as Black people that want to be treated fairly or equal. And I haven't seen a lot of people in my time be as consistent, but now we start to see with social media, a lot of people are doing their own form of activism. When you look at what's happening today, especially with social media, and you look at when Martin, Dr. King and Jesse Jackson, you and all the icons and Malcolm X were doing it, what do you see has changed, and what do you see is working, not working, or what should we all be doing?
I think that everybody does what is available in their generation. So, like when I was a kid and coming up as a youth organizer, I thought the guys older than me didn't understand. I remember when cell phones came out and they were still on rotary phones,
Yeah.
and then and we laugh at them, and we went to cassette tapes, and they were still with 45 records. So I mean, it's new methods today, social media. But be assured, in 10 years, they're going to be old to your kids or to your grandkids in 20 years. Nothing stays. What we must do is use whatever is available and whatever time we're in to get our message across. And don't get stuck, because I remember when we were doing the Trayvon Martin movement, everybody was talking about the millennials. And now they talking about Generation Z. The millennials is old. I mean, don't get caught up on where you are in the journey. Get caught up on making the journey till you get where you have to go. Because we need everybody. And we need the old heads that know what happened and know how to stay focused. We need the young people with the energy. And the old heads need to not get in their way. And the young heads need to not try and discount the old heads, because we need the wisdom and we need the energy.
Reverend Al, you talked about the differences in the past and now what's going on today. How do you feel about the narrative that goes on where they say today we lack leadership in the Black community?
We always said that. You know, when Martin Luther King was alive, they said there was no leaders. When Malcolm was alive, they said there was no leaders. There wasn't but 300 or 400 people at Malcolm's rally when he got killed. We have a real problem in the Black community, damage. We love leaders when they dead and kill them when they're alive. That's part of the self-hate. And I don't know any leader. If you study back to Frederick Douglass, the guy came out last year with a huge book on Douglass. They condemned him all the way, and this was in slavery time. You can't go out there based on how many people are going to say I'm with you. You got to go out there knowing that you are doing it because you can't help yourself. I've called marches where we had 100 people. I've called marches where we had 300,000 people. It is not the crowd, it's the aim, and do you get something done? And we've got to change these police laws just like we changed racial profiling laws, just like we changed voting laws, and not get caught up on the thing. The detractors. The other thing is, I was blessed that when I was 18 years old, that young man joined my youth group. I had a young civil rights group called National Youth Movement named Teddy Brown. He's from Georgia. And he hung with us a while. He got killed in a car accident. And his father was the godfather of Soul James Brown. And Teddy and I were the same age. James Brown came to New York and wanted to do a memorial for him, did a concert, gave the money to my youth group. And me and him became father and son. I became like Teddy. He lost, who was the same age, though he had other kids. And he became like the father that had left me when I was 10. And one thing James Brown drilled in my head more than any of my minister mentors is you got to march to your own beat, Reverend. He said, I mastered music on the 1-3 beat, not the 2-4. He said that's what he would always talk about. Get it on the one. It's not on the one. I didn't know what the one was. I didn't know about music. But I would be sitting up with him, hanging out in the studios. He'd take me around the world. Nobody treated me like that. And he taught me march to your own beat. So when I started emerging in my own activism, I have my own style, my own everything. They do cartoons and all. But all I could hear is James Brown in my head. March to your own beat. Do your own thing. Do your way. And if it's working and it's effective, that's what you do.
I want to touch on something you said. You talked about self-hate. I follow Tariq Nasheed. He has a show called Hidden Colors. I don't know if you're aware. It's a great show. He was talking about how this self-hate that we have is somewhat programmed. How do we reprogram the system? Because I feel like this self-hate is getting in our way of having real progress.
I think he's absolutely right. And I think the way we've got to reprogram it is we've first got to identify what happens when you go to a doctor with an ailment, they first have to do a diagnosis and they have to say, this is the problem. Self-hate is the problem. We put more criticism on black leaders who don't have any power in terms of government than we do white leaders with power. So we'll say, what's wrong with the problem? Well, the problem is the Black Caucus ain't doing nothing. The problem is Sharpton and them ain't doing it. We never blame the governor. Don't even know the governor's name. And he's the one that's got the state power. You ask the average person criticizing, what's your mayor's name? What's your state representative name? They don't even know. Yeah, but they know to cuss out somebody that they heard because we're programmed to blame each other for being down rather than to blame those that are keeping us down and to really push ourselves to move forward.
Interesting to say that I recently saw a video where a group of black people were saying Obama didn't erase racism. And I'm like, Obama could not erase racism, right? And I didn't understand. I mean, I understand the frustration because I know what it felt like to work on Obama's campaign and to see him get elected. I know what that meant. I'm sure it meant something to you, having lived in an era where it probably seemed impossible. But don't you think that that's unfair for people to be mad at Barack Obama or the Obamas for not erasing racism?
Barack Obama was president. He was not king. He had to fight like hell to get anything done and got the Affordable Care Act, got a lot of other things done that no other president did. Affordable Care Act alone helped 23 million people get health insurance that never had it, disproportionately black, fighting to keep voting rights for us where they were turning some of these states into vote IDs and all. He did that for us. On and on and on. He would meet with us and tell us, look, this is what we're trying to do. Y'all go out there and force this. The thing that you do as president, you don't set the agenda of the community. You let the community set the agenda and you try to get it done. We wanted Obama to march on himself. He don't lead the marches against the president. He was the president. And I think that a lot of us got the role mixed up that he's supposed to have done everything. He can only do what he can do and then get the Senate and the Congress to go along. I think he did a tremendous job, and I defended him and stood with him. And I didn't expect him to go down to Florida and blow up Trayvon Martin. That was my job. Or to deal with Eric Garner. That was my job. And once we blow it up, we expected him to respond and get the Justice Department to come in and deal with it, like whoever's president next. And let me tell you something. Trump ain't doing everything white conservatives want, but he's responding to it. So a lot of people are talking about Obama don't understand what the roles are. We all have different roles to play. And if everybody plays their roles, we all move forward.
It was George Floyd's funeral where you said a lot of things that really just, I think, turned the dial up for me to really focus on what you're saying, every detail of what you're saying. And like I started to say earlier, I've heard you speak a lot. And I don't know if it's because the 8 minutes and 46 seconds have shaken something in me to where now I'm ultra sensitive to everything. But you said that you're the blow up man. And I think, when we look at you and Dr. King and Jesse Jackson and Malcolm X, I think we're conditioned to look at you all to fix it all. When really, I think you're shaking it up, you're blowing it up, and you're educating people on what they can do. But everybody has to get that sense of ownership, right, of the solution. And so, what do we do to get people to stay locked into that we can watch what you're doing and listen, but we all have to act in unison and be behind you and support those things.
They need to get involved. If not our National Action Network, in some group in their community or form one. They need to be hooked up. Now with the internet, you have no reason not to be on everybody's page seeing where the acts are. We're doing a big national march August 28th in Washington. People need to come. Why? We have the police charge, for example, in George Floyd, but we don't have them indicted yet. We don't have a trial date. We don't know whether they go to trial like we got Zimmerman. When I went to Florida, they wouldn't even arrest Zimmerman. We got him arrested, charged. He got acquitted.
We just saw one of the officers out buying Oreo cookies the other day.
That's right. So we can't let our guard down. We got to keep going to these rallies, keep going to these marches. We have to vote. I was asking some brothers the other day when I went down to Tulsa. I said, y'all going to vote? Well, Red Mel, you know, that's your thing. I said, oh, I thought y'all were mad about the police killed Terrence Crush out here. I said, yeah, man, we still mad. I said, well, you know, if you were on the jury, you think you'd have voted guilty? He said, damn right I'd have voted guilty. I said, you do know you have to be a registered voter to be on the jury, right? So I didn't know that. Stuff like that we can do. Register to vote. Vote. Get on these juries. Be an organization. Everybody ain't got to get out front and make the 6 o'clock news, but everybody can be responsible. And don't do it for Maxine Waters or Al Sharpton. Do it for your kids. Do it for you. I've never fought for anybody that was already in the movement. It wasn't members of my organization. It was always somebody that never thought it could happen to them. And that's who the next one would be. And that's what we got to understand.
Absolutely. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was Gandhi that said we have to become the change we speak.
Yeah, you got it right, yeah. Mahatma Gandhi.
How do you feel about the basketball players? Some are considering taking a stand of not going back into the league because they feel like it's going to be a distraction. Do you feel like that's is that a good way of protesting? Do you feel like that would help create change and help the narrative that's going on right now?
I think that it would certainly draw a lot of attention, and I think that it shows that it hits them in the pocket. I would salute them. And that's one of the reasons why I said at the second eulogy for George Floyd that we still should be rallying around Colin Kaepernick, apologizing. The head of the NFL commission apologized. Don't mean nothing. Give the man his quarterback status again, because he took that knee for us. He didn't take that knee for him. He took it for us. And we shouldn't leave him out there. And I don't even know Colin Kaepernick, but I stood up for him because what he's doing is right. And when athletes or entertainers sacrifice their income and sacrifice their commercial value, the least we can do is back them up.
Well, I've been talking to Kaepernick's organization, and I know he's working out every day, waiting for the call. My fear is that right now, like the NFL commissioner's apology, and all these companies now all of a sudden have this, this whole, they woke now about what's happening, want to do everything. But do you think some of that is just, it's out of guilt? Not that I care, because trust me, I'm guilting every white person that I've dealt with into something. But do you think that's out of guilt, or do you think they're just trying to stay away from the smoke? Or what do you think?
I think it's a little of both. There's some guilt. A lot of it is, let me calm this down until it phases out, the news cycle goes somewhere else. That's why I wanted to challenge the commissioner right there when we knew we were on live TV globally. Get a man his job back. Don't think we went for the apology. It's easy, I'm sorry, and leave things as it is. Well, if you're sorry, make sure the man goes to work. I remember when I was young, Muhammad Ali wouldn't go to the war. We never felt we won till we saw him back in that ring again. I don't feel we won till we see Kaepernick on the field again.
You also said during that eulogy, which I thought was really powerful, people haven't seen it, which I think the whole world did. They need to go back and look on YouTube. You said that George Floyd died from common American criminal justice malfunction. And I thought that was powerful. And the fact that now everybody's talking about defunding the police. What do you stand on that?
I think that we definitely have to reimagine what policing is. When we say defund them, we mean deconstruct the way the funding is now. Put money in mental health. Put money in dealing with how you deal with the homeless. Put money in training. Put money in neighborhood youth program. All of these problems could be solved if you distributed the money where it's more with human services and development, and not just pouring money into policing that don't work. We had over 100 people shot in Chicago just last weekend, Father's Day weekend. You don't need more money into the same way. You need to get on the ground and put the resources there and turn these communities around.
And so and I think that's where I got confused with defunding the police, because somebody called me and said, can you endorse removing police out of schools? And I was thinking about school shootings, and I was thinking, I wasn't really prepared to give an endorsement for that because I didn't know what that meant. But What do you think that means? Do you think we should take police out of schools?
I think that we should have people in schools that are not necessarily just walking around with guns, but that are trained to secure the schools, but also they can deal with sessions with kids. I remember when I went to school, I told you my father left when I was 10. And I remember that one of the best things that happened to me was there was a guy at the school, Ralph, we call him Ralph the cop. He would sit and take me for pizza every day and talk to me about how you feel about your dad ain't there, how you feel you ain't got a private house no more, you in the projects. He was a white guy. And he said, well, you know, I grew up in the project. And this guy related to me. That was better than throwing me up against the wall telling me to behave myself. We need to train people like that in the schools and let them be the security, but let them have a different kind of agenda of relating.
So on President Trump still not commenting on the 8 minutes and 46 seconds and the whole conversation that was happening after Biden spoke to Charlemagne about, you know, if you vote for Trump, you ain't black. What do you think about that? Because at this point, I only see one option. Like Trump is not even, I don't even understand what we're talking about when we're talking about whether we're voting for Biden or Trump, because I think where most of us forget is when we elect people in, or the political process is not just at election time. It's before election time, it's during election time, it's after election time. It's a continual process. So what do you think about all that conversation that was happening?
You know, I met Trump in the 80s, and because both of us are New Yorkers, and he used to have fights down in Atlantic City because he had the contract for the big Constitution Hall or Convention Center in Atlantic City. So Don King was promoting, and he had to deal with Trump to get Mike Tyson fights there. I knew Tyson well, knew Don King well, so I used to go to all the fights. And so I got to know him. And he's a businessman, and he always has been just for Trump. But where I jumped on him was he came out and bought ads calling for the death penalty of the Central Park Five. And I defended them. I never believed those kids did it. I fought them. They called me all kinds of names, and we ended up being right. He never would back down. Then he'd come and try to act like he was cool, support the Democrats. Then he came out with this birther thing that President Obama wasn't a real American. And that was a race card. I told him that. I said, what you really playing on, he ain't one of us. He ain't an American. And that's racist. So I started calling him a racist on my TV show. He called me and said, how can you call me a racist? You know me better than that. How do I know you better than that? Because you went to a fight? I mean, come on. And I think that you're right. The choice is clear. What has he done when we had the young lady killed in Charlottesville because they were marching to take down the statue of a Confederate general? Here's a Confederate general who fought to keep us enslaved. Let's remember why they were in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
They were fighting to say, we want to take the statue down of a man that fought to keep slavery. And to add insult to injury, Jason, and damage, we pay taxes for them to pay for the maintenance of these statues. So we're paying for them to maintain and clean and scrub and have security on statues glorifying people that enslaved our forefathers. And Trump called these people good people on both sides. I don't think it's a close call when it comes to Donald Trump. And I'm just giving you some of the highlights. How do you go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, Friday night? We ain't got to go back 3 years. Saturday night, Friday I was there. Saturday night, speak a mile away from where they had the massacre of the Black Wall Street. Didn't mention it one time while everybody's out there marching in the street. Never mentioned George Floyd's name. Never mentioned 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Spoke 90 minutes and never mentioned any of that. That's deliberate. So if you don't want to be with us, why should we be with you?
Absolutely. We have a big election coming up, and a lot of people in our community are talking about and pressuring and demanding a Black tangible agenda. What do you feel about that? And if there was to be one, what does that look like for you, Reverend Al?
I think that we got to have one. There's going to be a labor agenda. There's going to be an agenda in every area of American life. It looks like for me that we've got to demand laws that protect us from abusive police, laws that deal with mass incarceration, laws that deal with repairing the damage done, what we call reparations. We've got to bring this down to laws. We're going to outline a lot of that at the August 28th march in Washington, because clearly we don't need them to write us an agenda. I don't want Biden to write me an agenda. I want us to write it and bring it to them. And you commit to this, and we will go with it. When I have my National Action Network convention every year, last year, we couldn't have it this year because of the pandemic. I asked every Democratic candidate, will you support reparations? Will you support single-payer plan insurance? And from Liz Warren across the board, I had 15 of them there. We've got to make them accountable to us. I ran for president in 2004. Every area of American life I went to, I had to answer what they wanted in their community. They wasn't ashamed of it. Why should we be bashful about a black agenda? We were born black, we live black, we're gonna die black. We need a black agenda.
Would you ever go into the White House and work with Biden and them on policy?
No, I didn't go in the White House with Obama, and I had access to him as much as any civil rights leader. My job ain't inside. You know, Martin Luther King used to say there are two types of leaders. There are those that are transactional. They make deals, you know, and that's good. They're businessmen or congressmen, or they're transactional. The other type is transformative. And one is a thermometer. They go in the room and say it's 60 degrees in the room. The other's a thermostat. They go in the room and change the temperature in the room. I'm the man that go in the room to turn the heat up. I'm not there to make you comfortable. I want you to be uncomfortable. That's my job. I do a show at MSNBC. I joke all the time. They have two Al's that are in 30 Rockefeller Center. One is Al Roker. He gives you the weather. The other is Al Sharpton. He changes the weather.
Listen, I think that's a perfect place to end it. But, to your point, we're creating a national voter registration initiative that I would love to share with you. I would love to, look to you for guidance and stay connected. Let's
do it. Let's stay connected. Let's stay talking. And you and Damage got to come and do my show since I did yours.
Oh, I'm ready. And this is like our first meeting. I said somebody's gonna tell Al about me. I got to be on my best behavior today. But
what I'm gonna tell you, the sister that handles our communications, Rachel Nordlinger, said you got to do that show. She said, I know you tied up that day. She said, but take a half hour, please do it. And I'm glad she did. I can feel the good vibes. So let's stay connected.
Oh, yeah, I'm a blow up man on the West Coast. So anytime you need me to blow something out here, you let me know.
All right, we got it. Thank you, man.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
What up, YouTube? Thank you for watching this reckless show.
Yeah, and hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell.
And also don't forget to share and leave a comment, because we are reading.